Good evening, everyone. I was requested by 2 or 3 students that if we change the timing to 5 to 7, they will be able to attend the lectures, because the morning lecture only 2 students were attending आणि बाकीचे जे होते दोघी तिघी जणी त्या अटेंड करत नव्हत्या, आणि म्हणून मी इव्हिनिंग 5 आपलं जे रेग्युलर बॅच टायमिंग होतं त्याच बॅच टायमिंगला लाईव्ह लेक्चर कंडक्ट करायचं ठरवलं आहे. आणि मला असं वाटतं की सगळ्यांना हा टायमिंग सुटेबल असेल. ओके, सो माझा जर वॉइस ऑडिबल असेल सगळ्यांना, सो प्लीज कमेंट इन द कमेंट सेक्शन सो दॅट वी कॅन स्टार्ट टुडेज लेक्चर. एम आय ऑडिबल टू एव्हरीबडी? सगळ्यांना लेक्चर ऐकू येते व्यवस्थित? गुड इव्हनिंग ऑल ऑफ यू. So let's start for today's session. I will quickly tell you that we have already revised few things from geography that we learned in the class. So those who are attending this lecture, are they able to listen to my voice? Please comment in the section. Please comment in the chat section if you are able to hear me, so that I can start today's lecture. Okay, I'm not getting any of the messages in the live chat section. Are you able to hear me, everyone? Because I'm not able to view any of the messages. Please post your feedback into chat section. There is a top chat section. You can directly post your messages into live chat. Okay. Okay. So Smita, then Vinita. Anyone else who has joined the lecture? Okay, so let's start today's lecture. As you all know, in the last lecture we have discussed still geomorphic processes. As you can remember, in the last lecture we discussed geomorphic processes and I gave you detailed classification. Okay, in that first we enlisted the endogenic geomorphic processes. We discussed endogenic geomorphic processes. Okay, And in endogenic geomorphic processes, I told you that we are going to discuss sudden and slow geomorphic processes. We are going to discuss sudden and slow geomorphic processes. In that first point that we are going to discuss today is catastrophic geomorphic processes. We are going to discuss catastrophic geomorphic processes. Now, in catastrophic geomorphic processes, I have already taught you three important processes. First is going to be earthquake. Second is going to be volcanism. And third is going to be tsunami. Okay. So, let's start with the first catastrophic geomorphic process, that is earthquake. Now, I would like to know definitions from you, because I have already given you definition for geomorphic processes, and I have also given you the definition for this earthquake. So I would like to hear from you, what do you mean by earthquake? How you can define earthquake? Because I have already defined. I just want to know what is meant by earthquake and what all things we are expected to study in earthquake. I am going to quickly revise in this particular domain. Now, as you can know, we can discuss first of all definition and mechanism for formation of earthquake. Then second point that we are going to discuss, that is concepts associated with earthquake, like focus of earthquake, then epicenter of the earthquake. These things we can study. त्याच्यानंतर आपल्याला स्टडी करायचं आहे ते म्हणजे मॅग्निट्यूड अँड intensity of the earthquake. And fourth thing that we are going to study is earthquake waves. Fifth thing that we are going to study is types of earthquakes. Okay, so these things I have already taught you, but I am just expecting you to answer few questions, and once you answer those questions we can move forward. Okay, now let me ask you some questions. First question, please answer these questions in the comment section, or please answer this questions in live chat section. You may not have a comment section there, you will have a live chat section, so answer those questions there. First question is that what do you mean by focus of earthquake? Second question is what do you mean by epicenter or just a center of earthquake? Third thing, what do you mean by intensity of the earthquake and how it is measured? Fourth point is what do you mean by magnitude of the earthquake and how it's measured? And fifth point is what are two broad types of earthquakes? What are broad types of earthquake waves? चलो ये जो क्वेश्चंस है इनको हमें आंसर करना है, एंड वी आर गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय अर्थक्वेक. First of all, what do you mean by focus of earthquake? Earthquake is an internal movement producing ripples on the ground. Earthquake intense release of energy. Okay, Okay, sufficient. Anyone else who wants to comment on this particular section, that is definition of earthquake? Let me define earthquake for you again, because I'm not getting full answers. I'm not getting full answers from you. So let me define earthquake for you. Okay, focus is located deep inside earth. Okay, so let me define first things for you. When I say earthquake, it is sudden release of energy. Earthquake means sudden and intense release of energy due to rupture in rock structure. In rock structures, which causes a sudden rupture in the rock structure, leads to intense release of energy. This energy travels in the form of vibrations, and these vibrations on the ground are called as earthquake. So earthquake is an event where we have an experience of vibrating ground, and these vibrations on ground are because of intense release of energy, and this intense release of energy is due to rupture in the rock structure. So collectively, when we study entire this thing, what we get is a sudden release of energy due to rupture in the rock structure leads to vibrations on the ground, and these vibrations are called as earthquake. Okay, so first point is answered, that is definition. Then second, mechanism of the formation of earthquake. You already know the elastic rebound theory. You already know the elastic rebound theory. This elastic rebound theory is best explanation for how the release of energy takes place and what is the mechanism behind the formation of earthquake. So I have already given you this elastic rebound theory. We already know that rocks have two properties. First is elasticity and second is brittleness, and due to these two properties, the elastic rebound theory is applicable to the rocks, and when this elastic rebound theory is applicable, a sudden release of energy takes place according to this theory, and the sudden movement in the rock strata gives rise to earthquake. Okay, so all these things are clear to you. Then next point that we must know is focus of earthquake. Okay, now as we have already discussed, the point where rupture of the rocks takes place, the point where there is a rupture in the rock strata, this is the rock strata, and if there is a rupture at this particular point of time, okay, that point experiences intense release of energy, or the release of energy starts from this point. Okay, and this point is called as focus of earthquake. Focus of earthquake is a point below ground which is a location where intense release of energy takes place, and that's why focus of earthquake is essentially a point where release of energy starts. This energy travels in all directions in the form of waves, in the form of वाइब्रेशंस, वेव्स और वाइब्रेशंस के स्वरूप में ये जो क्या बोल सकते हो आप, दिस पर्टिकुलर एरिया it finds its application there. Now in addition to that there is one point that is called as epicenter, और ये epicenter के बारे में मैंने बहुत बार बोला है. What do you mean by epicenter? There is focus of earthquake which lies deep inside earth, okay, and the distance, a perpendicular distance from the center or the focus of the earthquake, when we drop a perpendicular, this perpendicular intersects to the surface at a particular point, and this point it receives earthquake waves first time during an earthquake event. They reach there first, and then they reach the other regions of Earth. So the point where earthquake waves are received first, which witnesses the earthquake event first, this is called as epicenter of the earthquake, or we can simply say center of the earthquake. Okay, this center of the earthquake, it experiences maximum amount of destruction during an earthquake event. It experiences maximum amount of energy, and so it is a highly destructive location. Okay, and it is always on the ground. It is located at the perpendicular distance from the focus of the earthquake. Okay, it is located from the center of the, it is located at the perpendicular distance from the focus of the earthquake. So these are important sections that you need to know. Then next point is intensity of the earthquake and how it is measured, and then next is magnitude of the earthquake, how it is measured. Tell me. First is intensity. Okay, and then next is magnitude. Intensity and magnitude. Tell me, what do you mean by intensity? What do you mean by magnitude? जे पण कुणी लेक्चर अटेंड करतायत प्रत्येकाने कमेंट करायच्या आहेत. मला एक दोन जणांच्याच कमेंट्स फक्त दिसत आहेत. येस, स्मिता अँड विनीता, I can see only their comments. Those who are attending lectures, please comment in the live chat section. Who else is listening to this lecture? Okay, Smita has answered intensity Mercalli scale. Okay, correct. Intensity measurement के लिए हमारे पास में Mercalli scale है, correct. Then magnitude measurement के लिए कौन सी scale है? Magnitude measurement के लिए कौन सी scale है? Okay, so let's distinguish between these points. Okay, first, when we are wanting to measure visible destruction or impact caused by an earthquake event, we call it as intensity of the earthquake. When I am about to measure the visible impact caused by, or the scale of destruction to the property and lives caused by any earthquake, I am going to measure its intensity. When I say magnitude, I am going to measure the amount of energy released during an earthquake event. Okay, amount of energy released during an earthquake event, that comes under what we can say magnitude of the earthquake. Okay, now second important point here is how we measure intensity. There is one important scientist who found out a different scale for it, and it is called as Mercalli scale, which has Roman 1 to Roman 12 steps. How many steps are there? How many phases are there? How many what we can say measuring units are there? There are 12 measuring units starting from 1 to 12, and we measure the intensity of earthquake in these 12 steps. Okay, Now you must know this thing, that Mercalli scale is a linear scale. On the other hand, in the magnitude section we go for Richter scale. कुठली स्केल वापरतो इथे आपण? रिश्टर स्केल नावाची स्केल वापरतो. ओके, and this Richter scale is responsible for giving us measurement of amount of energy released. Measurement of amount of energy released. And one important point here is this Richter scale is a logarithmic scale. Richter scale कशी आहे? It is a logarithmic scale. Now, who is going to tell me a difference between linear scale and logarithmic scale? चला, मला कोण सांगेल हा डिफरन्स एक्झॅक्टली काय आहे तो? काय डिफरन्स सांगायचा आहे तुम्हाला? What do you mean by Mercalli scale? Sorry, what do you mean by linear scale and what do you mean by logarithmic scale? चला सांगा, exactly what is the difference between these two scales? Alright, सांगा difference. What is the difference between linear scale and what is the difference between logarithmic scale? Linear scale, difference between two numbers are same. असं कुणी सांगितलं? Difference between two numbers are same. What do you mean by it? Between two consecutive measuring number, difference of 1 unit is called as linear scale. Okay, try and answer in a better way. चला, मी सांगतो आता, कोणालाही सांगता आलेला नाहीये तो डिफरन्स. लेट मी टेल यू. लिनियर स्केल अँड लॉगॅरिथमिक स्केल. तुम्हाला कळलाय डिफरन्स, पण तुम्हाला तो सांगता येत नाहीये, तर मी कसं सांगायचं ते सांगतो. इन द लिनियर स्केल, the difference between two consecutive steps is of 1 times. So difference between two consecutive scale is of 1 time. Means if a linear scale of 1 and linear scale of 2, the difference would be of 1 times. Okay, but if you are talking about logarithmic scale, the difference between two consecutive steps is always in the multiples. Now for Richter scale, it is in the multiples of tens. It is in the multiples of tens. So 1 and 2, how much difference is there? 10 times. 2 and 3, difference is of 10 times. 3 and 4, difference is of 10 times. So here it is in the multiples. For example, this difference may be of 20 times for any other scale, if it is not Richter scale, and if it is any other scale where we are measuring any other physical quantity, there if it is a logarithmic scale, there can be a difference of 20, there can be a difference of 100, there can be a difference of 1000 between two consecutive scales. So there is always a difference in the multiples, it is not one time. Okay, that is precisely the idea behind logarithmic scale. So here in this logarithmic scale of Richter, here the consecutive two steps, the difference is of 10 times. For example, 1 and 3 मधला difference किती असणार आहे 100 times, 1 and 4 मधला difference किती असणार आहे 1000 times. So this is how we study logarithmic scale, and that's why a slight difference in a logarithmic scale will lead to a huge difference in the measuring quantity. आपल्याला फक्त हेच लक्षात ठेवायचं आहे, लिनियर स्केल आणि लॉगॅरिथमिक स्केल मधला हा एक क्रिटिकल डिफरन्स आहे की जो तुम्हाला लक्षामध्ये राहायला पाहिजे. ओके, त्यामुळे परत एकदा सांगतोय, हा डिफरन्स समजलाय का सगळ्यांना? समजला असेल तर कमेंट सेक्शन मध्ये यस लिहा. इफ यू हॅव अंडरस्टूड द डिफरन्स बिटवीन द टू, कमेंट युअर आन्सर इन दी लाईव्ह चॅट सेक्शन सो दॅट आय कॅन मूव फॉरवर्ड. Richter scale आपल्या सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे, इट इज फ्रॉम 0 to 9 or 1 to 10. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters. For example, if you start from 0, your scale will end at 9, and if you start from 1, your scale will end at 10. Okay, okay, so now let's move on to next important topic from earthquakes, that is we are about to discuss the earthquake waves. आपल्याला पुढचा जो पॉइंट बघायचा आहे तो काय आहे, earthquake waves आहे. ठीक आहे, in earthquake waves we are about to discuss three distinct types of earthquake waves. First is primary waves, second is secondary waves, and third is surface waves. Surface waves are of two types. First is love waves and next is Rayleigh waves. Okay, so earthquake waves. Now who is going to tell me difference between these three? For example, which is most powerful, then which is most destructive, then which has highest velocity and how much it is? Answer these three questions. What are my three questions? First question is, which wave is a strongest wave in terms of energy? In terms of energy, which is a strongest wave? Second important point here is, which is most destructive in nature? And third point that I want to know from you is, which wave is having highest velocity? Okay, correct answer. Primary waves are more powerful, correct. Then which waves are more destructive? Okay, primary waves are most powerful waves, correct. Surface waves are most destructive, correct. In surface waves, love waves are most destructive. That is also a correct answer. Then which waves are most high speed waves? किनकी velocity सबसे ज्यादा है और वो कितनी है? Whose velocity is found to be highest? whose velocity is found to be highest? No. Let me give you the velocities. For primary waves, velocity is almost 13 kilometers per second. Then for secondary waves, velocity may vary from 4 to 6 kilometers per second. For surface waves, both surface waves, velocity is almost 2 kilometers per second. So highest velocity is there for primary waves. Primary waves have highest velocity. Okay. Now let's move on to next part, that is properties of earthquake waves. और इसमें पहली waves है primary waves. Tell me what are the important properties of primary waves. Primary waves की properties कौन कौन सी है? Important properties. प्रायमरी वेव्हच्या प्रॉपर्टीज मला सांगा. त्याच्यामध्ये प्रायमरी वेव्हच्या इम्पॉर्टंट प्रॉपर्टीज कुठल्या आहेत? काही महत्त्वाच्या प्रॉपर्टीज सांगा फक्त. Correct. Primary waves are sound like waves and they are longitudinal waves. What else? Remember, primary waves are longitudinal waves. Their nature is always like a sound wave. These are the only waves which can travel through solid as well as liquid substances. This is the only wave which can reach up to core of the earth. This wave has capacity to travel deep inside the core of the earth and it can come out from another side of the earth. So this is an important property. Next, secondary waves की properties क्या क्या है देखिए. Secondary waves are transverse waves. Secondary waves कैसी waves है? Transverse waves है. Secondary waves जो हमारे पास में है उनको हम transverse waves बोलेंगे. These transverse waves, they are light like waves. Okay, transverse waves are light like waves. They can travel only through solids. They cannot travel through liquids. These waves, they can travel only up to mantle of the earth. They cannot enter core of the earth. हे काही अतिशय महत्त्वाचे मुद्दे आहेत जे तुम्हाला लक्षामध्ये ठेवायचे आहेत. बघा, एक एक अतिशय महत्त्वाचा मुद्दा तुम्हाला माहिती पाहिजे आणि हे पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरन्सेस आहेत ते तुमच्या लक्षामध्ये राहिले पाहिजेत. ओके, सेकंडरी वेव्हज ह्या कशा प्रकारच्या आहेत तर लाईट लाईक आहेत. सेकंडरी वेव्हज ह्या फक्त सॉलिड मधून ट्रॅव्हल करू शकतात आणि या इतर कुठल्याही पदार्थामधून ट्रॅव्हल करू शकत नाहीत. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, दे कॅनॉट ट्रॅव्हल थ्रू सॉलिड सबस्टन्स अँड बिकॉज of that they are going to stop at the core mantle boundary because our core is in liquid state. Okay, so these are some of the important points that you should remember about earthquake waves. Now we come to our last point in the earthquake discussion, that is types of earthquake waves. Let us discuss types of earthquake waves. Earthquake waves discussion झालं आपलं. Sorry. Let's discuss types of earthquakes. नेक्स्ट जो पॉइंट आपल्याला डिस्कस करायचा तो कुठला डिस्कस करायचा आहे? टाइप्स ऑफ अर्थक्वेक्स. मी तुम्हाला याआधी सांगितलं की ब्रॉडली आपण अर्थक्वेकचे दोन प्रकार पाडू शकतो. फर्स्ट इज अर्थक्वेक कॉज्ड बाय नॅचरल फॅक्टर्स आणि दुसरे आहेत ते म्हणजे अर्थक्वेक्स कॉज्ड बाय अँथ्रोपोजेनिक फॅक्टर्स. लक्षात घ्या, अर्थक्वेक कॉज्ड बाय natural factors and earthquake caused by anthropogenic. When I say anthropogenic factor, I am referring to human intervention. Or human what we can say error. Now natural earthquakes are of two types, or earthquakes because of natural factors, they are of two types. What are they? First important type of earthquake is that we should remember, and this is called as सांगा टेक्टोनिक अर्थक्वेक. कुठला अर्थक्वेक आहे? टेक्टोनिक अर्थक्वेक. आणि दुसरा असणार आहे तो म्हणजे व्हॉल्कॅनिक अर्थक्वेक. दीज आर कॉज्ड बाय सम नॅचरल इव्हेंट्स. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, टेक्टोनिक अर्थक्वेक, it mainly takes place because of some important events taking place deep inside earth because of plate tectonic. प्लेट टेक्टॉनिक थिअरी माझी ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन करून झालेली आहे, त्याच्यामुळे त्याच्याबद्दल आता मी वेगळं सांगत बसणार नाहीये. आणि व्हॉल्कॅनिक अर्थक्वेक जे आहेत, देर आर व्हॉल्कॅनिक इरप्शन्स. व्हॉल्कॅनिक इरप्शन्स आर व्हायलंट इन नेचर मेनी अ टाइम्स, and the violent volcanic eruption, a destructive volcanic eruption, introduces different kinds of vibrations on the ground, and these vibrations are also called as earthquake. So tectonic earthquake caused by plate tectonic, and volcanic earthquake caused because of volcanic eruptions, which are sudden, which are violent, which are destructive in nature. Now due to anthropogenic causes, we have two types of earthquakes. First is called as explosion induced earthquake. It is called as explosion induced earthquake. We human beings, we conduct different kinds of explosions for different purposes, and one of them is atomic explosions. We have atomic testing sites, we have atomic testing centers, and we conduct different kinds of tests so as to simulate the atomic bombs. And these atomic bombs, when they are exploded in physical world, the explosion is of huge size and energy, and such an explosion is responsible for release of intense energy, which gives rise to an earthquake, which is a localized earthquake. But such earthquakes are called as explosion induced earthquake. These explosions are caused because of human intervention, and such human interventions are their responsible, and that's why we call them as anthropogenic elements. Okay, then next point is reservoir induced earthquakes. याच्यावर मी डिटेल एक्सप्लेनेशन सगळ्यांना दिलेलं आहे रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेकचं. मला तुमच्याकडून एक्सपेक्टेड आहे, मला ह्याचं एक्झाम्पल द्या, रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेकचं एक्झाम्पल. ओके, रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेकचं एक्झाम्पल मला तुमच्याकडून पाहिजे. चला सांगा, रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेक जगामध्ये कुठे आपल्याला रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेक दिसतो? I have given you example along with the location. Smita, it is incorrect answer, completely No, Latur is also wrong answer. I told you that Latur is Koyna reservoir is not an example of reservoir induced earthquake. There is only one scientifically noted, not Tihri as well. There is only one listed, documented location for reservoir induced earthquake, and it is Hoover Dam on Colorado River in USA. This is an example of earthquake which is caused because of reservoir. Please don't use any other example. Koyna reservoir is not an example of reservoir induced earthquake. I have told you that in the Koyna region there is already a fault line. That fault line is called as Bhima fault line, which is responsible for earthquake in Latur as well as occurrences of earthquake in Koyna region. So Koyna is not an example of reservoir induced earthquake. So please keep in mind, Koyna river is not an example. Tihri, which is located in the Garhwal district of Uttarakhand, it is also not an example. Himalaya already is a high intensity, or we can say high propensity, highly vulnerable zone in terms of earthquakes. Why? Because Himalayas are located on convergent plate boundary. If you correctly remember, I have already told you that occurrences of earthquake, volcanic eruptions and different kinds of endogenic processes, they are majorly found in the convergent plate boundary region. We have already discussed the concept of ring of fire. मी तुम्हाला ऑलरेडी कन्सेप्ट सांगितलेली आहे. कन्सेप्टचं नाव आहे रिंग ऑफ फायर किंवा ज्याला आपण अग्निकंकण असं नाव देतो. Okay, so I expect you to know all these things. Okay, so let's move on to the next concept, that is volcanism. Volcanism, earthquake बद्दल कोणाला काही शंका आहे का? मी 1-2 मिनिटाचा वेळ देतोय. earthquake बद्दल जर कोणाला काही विचारायचं असेल तर विचारा. If you have any query or any kind of question regarding earthquakes, because I am revising this for second time, so I expect you to know each and everything. Even if you are missing any concept, please comment in the live chat so that I can answer your questions. I am waiting for your comments. Do you want me to take any concept regarding earthquakes? If not, then shall I move on to volcanic eruptions? Shall I go to volcanic eruptions? Yes, Mita, I left that point purposefully. On the basis of focus, you can classify earthquakes into 3 types: shallow focus earthquake, medium focus earthquake and deep focus earthquake. There is nothing to explain. On the basis of location, we can classify, yes, on the basis of location of the focus, we can classify earthquakes into 3 different types. Okay, and I do know that you know this particular point, and that's why I have left it unanswered. Okay, so I expect you to know this. Any other point that you are not able to answer, or any other point that is confusing to you? If not, then I can go towards volcanic eruption. Okay, Vinita is asking, I didn't get reservoir earthquake concept. Beta, what you didn't get? How the earthquake takes place, or how the reservoir is responsible? What is exactly you didn't get in this particular concept? Okay, let me revise it quickly. I am going to revise reservoir induced earthquake quickly. Okay, now imagine there is a rock layer where there are multiple rocks located there. Now rock layer 1, rock layer 2, rock layer 3, rock layer 4, rock layer 5. Okay, now these rocks, they have different capacities to withstand stress, or we can simply say pressure. They have different capacities to withstand pressure. Now there can be some weak zones in the rocks. Okay, now right now this region has a flowing river. This region has a flowing river, so there is no impact on the rocks that are lying below. But if you build a reservoir here by blocking the river channel, there will be huge stockpile of water. There will be huge stockpile of water. Now water and air, they do have difference in the mass. Till this date, this area was covered by air, and right now it is covered by water. Now this water storage, it will create an extra pressure, or it will apply extra force on the rocks that are lying below. Now if there are weak zones in the rocks, they may experience more pressure than usual, and if they cannot withstand this pressure, they will break down. They will break down into multiple fragments. Okay, and when these rocks break down, they lead to release of energy and associated earthquakes. Okay, now when earthquake takes place because of such reservoir construction, we call it as reservoir induced earthquake. बा विनीता आता समजलंय का रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेक काय आहेत ते? अजूनही समजलं नसेल तर मी परत एकदा सांगतो. चला, समजलंय का रिझर्वायर इंड्युस्ड अर्थक्वेक एक्झॅक्टली काय आहेत ते? Okay, now let's move on to volcanism. Volcanism, I have already explained. Volcanic eruptions. एक just detailed classification देतो जो already दिलेला आहे. So classification of volcanoes, volcanic eruptions or volcanic sites. We can classify volcanoes into multiple methods. First is on the basis of nature of eruption. We can classify volcanoes into different types. One is fissure eruption and central eruption. In fissure eruption, there is only one example, that is flood basalt plateaus. In central eruption, you have multiple types: Hawaiian, Stromboli, Vesuvius, Vulcani, Peli, Pliny, and all. Okay, so on nature of eruption, we can classify earthquakes into these many types. Volcanoes into these many types. Then, on the basis of shape and structure, you can classify volcanoes into multiple types. One is composite volcano, then shield volcano, then cinder cone volcano. Composite volcano, shield volcano, cinder cone volcano. Then on the basis of life cycle, we can classify earthquakes into volcanoes into active, dormant, and extinct. Okay. Now tell me difference between active volcano, dormant volcano, and extinct volcano. Tell me difference between these three: active volcano, dormant volcano, and extinct volcano. Yes, I am expecting you to answer. What is the difference between active volcano, dormant volcano, and extinct volcano? No one is able to answer this question. Don't you remember that these three are important types of volcanoes depending upon? These three are important types of volcanoes depending. Active, magma chamber is active, creates crater is filled with lava. Okay. चला मी सांगतो. Active volcano is a volcano where volcanic eruption has taken place in a near past. Recently there has been volcanic eruption, and where magma chamber and the crater both have activities. When there is activity in the crater of volcano as well as the magma chamber of the volcano can erupt any point of time. There can be eruption on a regular basis. There can be an ongoing eruption into that volcano. Such a volcano is called as active volcano. Then we have dormant volcano, two sections. The magma chamber it's still active. The magma chamber is still active, but the crater has solidified fully. So there is no activity on the surface, but there is activity below the ground. Such kind of volcano is called as dormant volcano. This volcano has two options. It can either become active or it can go extinct. Okay. So dormant volcano, it can either go active or it can go extinct. If it goes active, then it becomes an active volcano. And if the magma chamber, the activity in the magma chamber stops, it also becomes an extinct volcano. Extinct volcano is a volcano where volcanic eruption has taken place in the very long past, and right now it do not have any activity, not on the ground and not below the ground as well. So such kind of volcano is called as extinct volcano. Tell me an example of active volcano in India and extinct volcano in India. I am asking you very simple question. Give me an example of active volcano and extinct volcano. डॉर्मंट volcano तर भारतामध्ये नाहीये, पण भारतामध्ये दोन आहेत. एक आहे तो म्हणजे ऍक्टिव्ह volcano आहे आणि दुसरा आहे तो म्हणजे एक्सटिंक्ट volcano आहे. तर या दोघांची एक्झाम्पल्स द्यायची आहेत. चला सांगा. अंदमान आणि निकोबार. बाळा एवढं ब्रॉड नाही पाहिजे मला स्पेसिफिक नावं पाहिजेत. मी क्लासमध्ये ऑलरेडी सांगितलेली आहेत. सगळ्यात महत्वाचा भारतातला एकमेव ऍक्टिव्ह volcano ज्याचं नाव मी तुम्हाला लिहून दिलं होतं, बॅरेन आयलँड. ओके. आणि सेकंड आहे एक्सटिंक्ट volcano ज्याचं नाव आहे नारकोंडम. अगेन इन अंदमान अँड निकोबार आयलँड ग्रुप. अंदमान अँड निकोबार आयलँड ग्रुप इज volcanic in origin. It has formed during the formation of Himalayan mountain system. हिमालयन माउंटन सिस्टीमच्या फॉर्मेशनच्या वेळेस हा काय तयार झालेला आहे, तर अंदमान आणि निकोबार बेट समूह तयार झालेला आहे. आणि त्यामुळे बॅरन आयलंड आणि नारकोंडम हे दोन्ही आपल्याला कुठे सापडतात, अंदमान आणि निकोबार बेटांमध्ये सापडतात. आणि त्यामुळे हे दोन अतिशय महत्वाचे एक्झाम्पल्स आहेत ऍक्टिव्ह आणि एक्सटिंक्ट volcanoचे. भारतामध्ये मुख्य भूमीवर ऑन मेनलँड इंडिया यू डोंट हॅव अ सिंगल एक्झाम्पल ऑफ ऍक्टिव्ह volcano. There is not a single example of active volcano on the mainland India, but there has been volcanic eruption on Indian land mass, but it took place millions of years ago, and we are going to study that in a geological time scale. Geological time scale मध्ये मी तुम्हाला नक्की सांगेल की कुठल्या टाइम्स मध्ये काय घडलंय. ओके. आणि आपली लास्टची कन्सेप्ट जी असणार आहे जिओग्राफीच्या पार्ट मध्ये, ती आपण कशामध्ये डिस्कस करणार आहोत, तर या जिओलॉजिकल टाइम स्केल. आज मी मात्र आपला जो जिओग्राफीचा जे शेवटचं डिस्कशन असणार आहे, म्हणजे जिओमॉर्फॉलॉजीमध्ये जो पार्ट आपण सगळ्यात शेवटी घ्यायचा विचार केलेला आहे, तर त्या शेवटच्या पार्टमध्ये नक्कीच मी तुम्हाला याबद्दल सांगणार आहे. ओके. मला असं वाटतं की आज आपण इथे थांबूया. एका तासाचं आपलं एक सेशन कंप्लीट झालंय. तुम्हाला देखील ऑनलाईनमध्ये एका तासापेक्षा जास्त स्टडी करणं अवघड जाणार आणि मला देखील एका तासापेक्षा जास्त केवळ कॅमेरासोबत बोलणं अवघड जाणार आहे. आणि त्यामुळं थोडं हळूहळू आपण एकदून पुढे लेक्चर टायमिंग वाढूया. आज मी इथेच थांबतो या लेक्चरमध्ये. उद्या आपण कंटिन्यू करूया सेम लेक्चरमध्ये आणि जिओमॉर्फिक प्रोसेसेस आपल्याला काय करायच्या आहेत इथून पुढच्या सायकलमध्ये डिस्कस करायच्या आहेत. ओके.